We're just about caught up this week with the bees. I've got two 24 pallet yards left to work, and they're going to be pretty tough to do. Probably 2 full days of work for sure there. After that, I can kind of jump around to some of these smaller, like this is not even a 12 pallet yard here. I don't even know what I have here. 3, 6, 7. This is just a 9 pallet yard. It's one of the small ones we have. And I can kind of just jump around and do a little nitpicky work. Like you can see, I sprayed it last time I ran around here. I was changing out some of those white buckets, I believe. And so I did bring the mower today. I'm just kind of, so I'm running around to some of these yards that need mowing. And I'll probably top off the buckets. This yard wasn't particularly great. Had a lot of foundation. But now that everybody's just about had their second bucket, and we're nearly done splitting up to our 1600 mark. I think we'll have it by the end of the week. If I keep running around doing some of these little odd jobs like this, that might set me back until next week, but I don't really feel any pressure. I'm going to tinker with the cell production a little bit. I think I'm going to try to make some queenless, 4-frame queenless nukes like I did last fall. I got pretty decent results. I may see if that'll help us build the cells up a little bit, but honestly things kind of feel like they're leveling out, and everything's looking pretty good. You can see out there, see all that green? A lot of that's dog fennel, but some of that you can almost see it's got just a slight yellow at the tips. That's goldenrod out there, so it's not blooming yet, but it's getting close. So I want to make sure mites are low, everybody's queen right. That can be. I want to go ahead and fill up a lot of these buckets, because like this yard really needs the pollen coming in, and we'll try to boost them up. I would love to time it where I feed everybody while the goldenrod's blooming. I would really get a nice burst of growth. But usually the goldenrod here is so powerful. If it rains a lot, and it has not been raining lately, but if it rains a lot, the goldenrod will put out a little bit of nectar. Sometimes we get some wax production from it. Usually what happens is the hives get pollen bound. We start building up a lot of bee bread and stuff, so that'll actually make it harder for the hives to grow as well, especially if I'm hitting them with syrup. But I don't think any of the yards are at risk of starvation at the moment. Many of the yards are a little bit on the heavy side. I just want to feed some of these that, like this yard has a lot of foundation, keep them building that up while the temps are still warm. And yeah, just run a little errand. So kind of a nice easy week this week, I think, besides those 2 big yards. I'm dreading that, but you know, it's got to be done. All right, I'm gonna get this place mowed. So these hives are pretty weak. You can see there's still not much to them. There's about 5 frames of bees down there, maybe 2 or 3 frames up top, but you can see they have drawn the foundation. They've only had 1 bucket of syrup so far. Some of the buckets were broken. I came back and replaced the bad ones. But and they definitely need more food. But look at that. I mean, they've swollen it out. Really pretty looking comb. I am going to checkerboard some of this stuff. These are like some of my old school splits where I put the foundation on the side. So I'll checkerboard these, so we'll be more likely to draw that foundation out. I probably could do it to this too, but they're drawing the foundation as is. I might just leave them be for now. See if they keep working on it. If they're making wax, I don't really feel like I need to manipulate them. It might help, but I don't know. I'll at least do the bottom part of the box here so we get these done right. But hopefully this next 2 gallons will keep them drawing out. Like it's technically about an 8-frame population maybe. So this would be, I'd be nervous to send one like this to California. It's definitely on the small side, but with it just still being early September, and them gonna have, you know, and we're gonna give them at least a couple more buckets. So I think, you know, they have a real good chance of going, which is good, because this is one of the yards I was really worried about. This yard, we only dropped the hives here because one, there's some fields, farmer fields around in the area out there, so we get a lot of mustard. You can see the goldenrod starting to pop up, a lot of wildflowers, but this is one of the locations where we can load semis. I can only get 1 or 2 semis in at our farm, depending on how hard we squeeze. But out here, the landowner is really nice. He's got all of these are really fields, and they don't seem to be planting them this year. So he'll bush hog all this out for me, and we can get in. I can get 20 semis in here. You know, there's no limitation here. So on an area like this, even though this is not the best, it's not a good spring yard, it's not a good summer yard, it's okay in the fall and winter. I try to keep hives and just small quantities of hives on properties like this, because you know, it just sort of like keeps me in a good relationship with the landowner. You know, he sees me, talks to me, and I'm scared if I move the hives away, either A, another beekeeper will come in here and take this, which is a semi-loading yard, it's very valuable, and or, you know, the landowner may be like, yeah, you know, I just don't like the bees, I don't want them here anymore. So I find if I keep bees in a location, I don't own the property, obviously, but it kind of becomes my territory in a way. So that we do have a few yards like this, and they're not all just for semi-loading. Sometimes they're just good for fall, or, you know, they're only good for spring or whatever, but I'll just keep a few hives, and kind of claims that area for me. Oh, that's an old frame there. Look, they drew that out really nice. That was not there last time I was here. The bees look really beautiful too. It's nice coloration. And there's some more old frames. They're working on it. So they've still got a lot of empty space here to work on, but I mean, honestly, it seems like all they need is just more syrup. And I think we're gonna get this foundation drawn out. This is just the first pallet in the yard, but all 4 hives are drawing out some degree of foundation. And I think they're gonna keep doing it too. I have found 3 green queens in this yard. That's last year's color, not the red, like I said in the last video. So they're doing pretty good. The 3 I've found have all been holding down some pretty strong double deeps. That's pretty great when you can see an older queen still being productive. All right, finished this yard. It's looking pretty good. Got it nice and mowed. I did not bring a weed eater to get that in between the hive spot, but whatever. I ripped a little bit up with my hands, and can't have everything, I guess, but definitely 1,000 times better than the jungle it used to be. I mean, it used to look like that before I sprayed it. All the hives pretty much look like that one that I had opened that I showed you guys. Kind of, you know, 8, 12 frame population, so pretty decent. Not, you know, definitely not blowing out of the box. No risk of swarming or anything. Definitely plenty of room to expand. Every hive had mostly a deep supra foundation, but every hive was drawing the frames like I had showed you. I checkerboarded as much of the foundation in between frames of comb, and especially brood, as I could. This hive I'm a little worried about. Had a ton of bad burr comb. This hive was dead. Had a lot of burr comb, and I shaved it all off, which I took it and shaved a lot of it off over there. I guess there was still some honey on the frame, so when I put them back in, you can see some of the honey's leaching out here. So a lot of those bees are going to drown. They might get robbed. I mean, I dumped 4 frames of brood and bees in there. They had plenty of honey. They were queenless and broodless, but they had some population. I don't know what happened, if they swarmed or whatever, but the frames were just so badly drawn. And normally, you know, I start smashing the comb, but this stuff was just, I mean, it was like freaking zigzagged. It was really horrible. And then when I saw this other pallet here drawing their foundation out, I was like, let me just rip the band-aid off and scrape that stuff off. But I didn't get enough of I was scared that they were going to rob, so I threw the frames back in there, but I think they just had too much honey on them. So you can see it leaching out. So that one, yeah, may have screwed that up, but maybe they'll be okay. I don't know. I mean, they've got enough bees inside. Maybe they can clean it up. But the rest of the hives look pretty darn good. I did find another one here, also was queenless and broodless. I dropped 4 brood in there. They also had a really good population. They just no queen, no nothing. There were a couple other ones that were, there's another one over there with a flag. They were dead outs from last time or 2-3 months ago. I don't know. There were still 2 lids sitting here that I had left. Finally, I did the right thing, and I had a few spare buckets on the truck, the 1 gallons mostly, and I was like, well, shoot, let me rebuild, because I didn't plan on coming out here to work the yard. I came out here mostly just to mow, top the buckets off, and, you know, I always spot check when I'm here just in case. But, you know, when you get here and you got the truck and you already got your smoker lid and you're like, yeah, you're kind of in it. There's not that many hives here. And I was like, oh, to heck with it. Let me go ahead and go through them. So I went through, queen checked everybody. Again, checkerboarded the foundation. Everybody looks good. 0 signs of mites. Definitely have got some more bad buckets you can see that are still going to pop. It seems to be holding the syrup okay, but I need to change more of these out. And I already came out here the other day and changed some of them, but this yard got a lot of bad buckets. But even with the ones with those cracks, they were also drawing foundation and had a good bit of honey in there. So I don't think if it is leaking, it's leaking slowly enough the bees are able to contain it. So that's okay. And anyways, they look pretty decent, so I can't really complain. I think they're definitely going to need a 3rd bucket. This is just their 2nd bucket. to really keep that foundation drawing out. And they're bringing in tons and tons of yellow pollen. So there's plenty of wildflowers all over the place. And again, the goldenrod's going to open up before too long. So I don't know. I think this yard's actually got this is one of the yards I was like, don't count on this thing going to California. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, it's got a really good shot. Just got to keep the thin feet on them, really, and just hope they draw the rest of that foundation out, which they're definitely working on. So nothing else to do here. This yard's done, and I'll probably can leave this one be for at least a month, and I'll come back. But they should just be a-okay. Gonna run through a couple smaller yards today. What I did this morning is I wrote a list. I took a piece of paper, I wrote down all of my yards, and I broke them into 3 different categories. I wrote down yards that I consider to be good, yards that I consider to be of average quality, and yards that are of bad quality. And then I tried to write down the list of reasons why the yards were not in a higher category. And most of them are probably what I would consider to be either in the bad category or average category. To me, good means almost perfect. It means the yard's been rebuilt 100%. There's little, if any, queenlessness. There's no mites. They're heavy. They don't have foundation. Basically, those are the yards that, you know, if I don't come around to in 6 weeks, they're going to be fine. So that standard is very high. Average is probably going to be fine. The main issue, like 9 times out of 10, the main issue holding the hives back from getting into a higher category was foundation levels. You know, that's still our #1 issue that we're having in the apiary. But as you've seen, you know, every time I come to a yard, every yard is drawing to some degree foundation, at least in the 2 brood boxes. The 3rd super, that's a bonus if we get it. And you've seen, I think we've only had 1 yard that's really drawn out anything in the 3rd super. So I don't know if we'll get much more there, but you know, I'm going to keep hoping for it. But like these 2-story yards, they have a really good chance, I think, with just a little bit more syrup to continue to draw. That problem should rectify itself with time, but until it's fixed, I'm leaving them in the bad category. So anyways, the reason I sat down and made that list this morning is because typically when I work my bee yards, I work in a cycle. I start at, you know, yard #1, and I work all the, and then I do yard #2 and 3 and 4. I just go and I just keep doing it in a loop and a loop and a loop, which is fine because it sort of keeps the whole apiary on the same cycle. I kind of know what's coming. Like once you've gotten to a few yards, you kind of know what to expect, you know, maybe for the next few weeks. Generally, the bee yards are more or less of same quality with some variation, of course. I mean, it's not like they're perfect copies of each other. But since things are kind of slowing down and stabilizing right now, I have a little bit of wiggle room in my schedule. I thought instead of just continuing on that cycle, why don't I just target the yards that are in this bad category and hit them a little more often? So like this yard here, it's in the bad category, but just because of foundation. You know, this was a yard that was just heavily stunted with foundation. They have been drawing it, but they still have a problem. I was just here 2 weeks ago when I fed them again, so they've already had 2 buckets of syrup. So I'm hoping we're going to get a little bit more of foundation drawn out. So I came a little early. Normally I wouldn't work this yard for 2 more weeks. You know, I hit them about once every 4 weeks. So the foundation can probably be solved. The foundation problem can be solved if I just keep hitting them with these buckets. And honestly, these are the hives that need the syrup anyways. There's really it's not necessary for me to go out to some of those yards that are like 5 1/2s that never got split all year, and you know, they're honey bound. You know, what's the point? I would rather give it to these little weak hives, let them have the syrup, let them draw foundation, let them get good and strong. So I think that's going to be better. That's something I've never really done in the years past, but I think that if I start focusing on the yards that are having issues and issues that I can solve pretty quickly, because I mean, how long does it take to really fill a bucket of syrup up? I can solve that problem pretty darn fast. And that's pretty much going to be it. The other main issue we're having, and it's not really necessarily an issue, is that we have a lot of queenlessness throughout the apiary. And that's only because we've been rebuilding all these dead hives for a while. And since the majority of them are being made without cells or queens, it takes 4 weeks to get around to them. You know, it takes 4 weeks for the queen to start laying and all that. So there's no need to go to those yards more than once a month, except for the few yards that we were able to spare cells or spare mated queens with. So that also is an issue that's probably going to resolve itself. Obviously, I'm checking all the flagged hives that we rebuild every time I come to the yard, and I'm fixing everything that I can. There's 7 deadouts in this yard. I don't know if I'll be able to rebuild this yard. I'm going to try. But last time there was too much foundation. That's why I didn't rebuild everything. So if that's the case again, you know, that's fine. I can see I probably stacked, it looks like a couple deadouts last time I was here. That's why I have those triples. So that's probably all comb if I supered it like that. So I know I can rebuild probably at least a couple, 2 out of the 7. If I have to, if I can rebuild the other 5, I'm going to try. So that's kind of it. That's what I think. That's a smarter decision, is just to focus on the bee yards that have some issues, and just maybe take a little bit longer to get to the yards that are in, you know, really good shape. I think my time would be better to prioritize where the problem yards are. And again, none of these problems are really substantial. I mean, everything should be able to be fixed with time, and that's really it. I don't really have any major fires to put out or anything right now. Everything seems to be going pretty smooth. You know, they can always throw you a curveball, but I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing. Everything seems to be working out. So anyways, I'm going to get this yard hopefully rebuilt and fed. And I still have the mower on, the trailer from yesterday. I didn't feel like taking it off, so I might mow this yard and the next yard, and I'm just going to keep on just doing that, I guess, for right now. There's a little bit of foundation drawing in this yard too. The bottom deep is solid comb. I started to work on these medium frames. Not a ton, just a few frames kind of partially drawn, but they're definitely producing some wax. That's good to see. Just making my standard split here. I've got 1 honey on the outside and then 4 brood, all mixed stages of brood with bees, so about 5 frame population. Of course, we don't have any comb left, so I'm giving them the foundation on the outside here. I want to leave that brood nest tight together so they can protect themselves and hopefully raise a cell or raise a queen. And if they're queen right next time I come back around, then I can start checkerboarding the foundation. But I find the splits do better when they're nice, tight, and controlled like that. And because this yard has in general been pretty weak so far, I'm not going to give these splits a medium box of foundation like I did last week on the good yard. Just because there's tons of foundation here. I'm already kind of struggling to rebuild even these 7. So I don't want to put them further at risk by giving them a super, because if they fail, I'm going to lose the little bit of comb that we have here. And it's just going to be hard to find the resources in the rest of the yard to rebuild them. So this yard, I'm going to kind of play on the safe side, make the splits strong, healthy, and just keep them as singles until I come back around. Wow, look at that frame of pollen. Yikes. They've all got pollen in the hives. This one looked really nice. Definitely no shortage of protein. I guess we got some of that fall pollen coming in. It's doing really good. Trying to change out this bad box here. It's about to split apart. And then I found this. these are these green drone frames. They'll just force the bees to produce drones. So I bought, I don't know, we bought about 100 of these frames or so. We dumped most of them back on the farm, and the couple of yards we have around the farm to help boosting our mating rates and all the mating nukes. But I've been trying to drop, you know, 1 here and there in the outside yards. You can see they didn't draw it all the way. They were working on it though. So got quite a bit of drones they're producing. They're starting to fill a little bit up with honey. What I've been doing is kind of putting it a little deeper into the brood nest. I'm going to move everything over, but I'm going to try to move this in the center. And my hope is that this will just kind of help keep some drones going, even in a season where they may be less primed to want to do it. May help with some of the mating rates with these hives that I'm rebuilding. Well, they're looking okay. They're not going to win any awards right now, but they're not unhealthy. And they've got some good weight on them from the first 2 buckets. A lot of them are how I built them earlier in the season, where I've got all the comb over here and then all this side's just a big chunk of foundation. They're barely touching that. You can kind of see they're drawing just a little bit back there, and just a tiny piece, but I believe they would draw more if we'd go ahead and checkerboard the the foundation. So I am going to do that. You can see some of the supers here. They are drawing a bit of that out. Nobody is like 100% drawing that box out, and some of them actually did get comb from foundation. I mean comb from foundation, comb from extraction. So like these were definitely untouched, but some of these may have had a little bit of extracted comb on there, so they may just be swelling them out. So I don't want to give this yard like full credit for drawing all their boxes out, because I think they had a little bit of some primer comb up there, but they definitely have swollen them out a little too much for my liking. But right now I'll take what I can get. Just got to keep the feet on them, and we'll keep this foundation being drawn out. This one's clearly drawing their frames out. Looks really good. Look at all that fresh wax on the top bars there. Look at that. Heck yeah. Yeah, this half of the yard looks way better than the other half. The other half was just packed full of foundation. These had a lot more comb, so they're just looking a lot better. I should have started with this half of the yard first, and then I could have pulled some of these resources and put them on the other half. That was my mistake. I knew that too. I messed up, but wasn't paying attention when I got here. It's okay. I mean, I did my best for the other side. I'll just have to make sure to pull from this side next time. I usually start from the same side of the yard each time, and it's not always good to do that. Sometimes it's better to start from the other side. But, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, this row here is just looking much better. And I remember now, this side was all like a top box of the double deeps that I brought in that I split this spring from California. It was solid foundation. And I think actually this side also was mostly foundation, but there's more comb. But I mean, they're drawing it over there, don't get me wrong, they're doing okay. They're just gonna need a lot more syrup. But it's nice to know that if they don't draw it, I can come over here and take them over there. I'm not doing it now because I've already gone through them and opened the buckets and all that crap. I'm not gonna go back and rework the whole yard, but I'll make sure I notate next time, start on the right side of this yard, and then I can equalize if necessary. All right, finish the yard. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not, you know, it's not great. It's still staying kind of on my bad list, more or less. It's really just got too much foundation, but I think with the checkering the foundation the best I could, there was so much, sometimes I couldn't do all of it. That's a bit of an issue. But they're definitely drawing foundation, especially that medium and the shallow foundation. I think it's a combo of both. They're doing quite a bit of that. They are drawing some of the deep foundation as well. Fortunately, they're old frames, so it's a little harder for them to draw. I did leave the 5 of the splits that I made today down as singles. I just stayed with the 1 honey, 4 brood. There were 2 hives I rebuilt that were dead outs last time that I left here. The comb was good. They were full of honeybees, so I basically made those a full hive and a half. Like there was one. I think there was one back over there. So they're pretty darn strong, but, you know, they still have to make a queen. And this is their 3rd syrup bucket of 1-to-1. So they've had 6 gallons. This is their 6th gallon I just gave them today. I would say this side should be pretty good because that's the side with the comb, but that side over there, this side, they're 100% going to need an 8th gallon, no doubt about it. I probably think that they're probably going to need 10 gallons of 1-to-1. That's really what I think. And if they're kind of drawing roughly what I'm seeing them draw, like in the same rate, I think we'll have most of this drawn out, but it's definitely going to take us most of the fall to get this yard up. But it's healthy. There was no disease. There were 0 mites. The queens were laying really great, even with the limited space they had. None of them were honey bound. They could be honey bound because they've had so much syrup, but they're actually drawing the foundation at, it seems like, to be at a steady rate. And it's like they're drawing the frames out and the queens are immediately laying in them. So they still had several frames of brood. I did have to dig in, you know, I didn't want to oversplit this yard because it is kind of weak and foundation bound. So I ended up pulling from 2 or 3 different hives to rebuild just like, say, 1 single. So I shouldn't have done too much damage trying to rebuild the yard, you know, because there were 7 dead outs that had to be built here. I did change out some of the buckets. I wish I had brought a few more. I'm bringing the extra buckets from the farm now, and I brought a bunch, but this yard had some really terrible buckets. But I think I got like the ones that were broken or about to break, but that's still kind of an issue. But there's really nothing else I can do here. This yard's, I don't know. I mean, I could come back in a couple of weeks and refill their buckets, but I'd like to come back and when these things are maybe queen right, which will be about 4 weeks. So I don't know. If I've got some free time or I'm just driving by and I've got some syrup on the truck, I could just swing by and fill their buckets, but there's not like I can't really do anything else. And all of the hives that were queen right from last month were still queen right this time. So yeah, I don't see anything like any looming issues. I just have to keep the feed on them, give them more time, hope these 7 splits take, and that's it. So this yard is just needs time and feed. That's it, and I think we can get them up. A little bit better take this week. 37 cells out of 120 grafts over 6 different cell builders. So that's about a 31% success rate, so still really crappy. Better than the 6 cells that I got last week. I did rebuild all 6, and generally the week that I rebuild the colonies, that's when I get the worst take, just because I'm not too particular anymore about if there's eggs or larvae. When I move them up there, I just move whatever brood I can, basically. So they're going to draw their own cells that'll compete against the grafts. That will account for a little bit of the low drawing, but I mean, we've also just been consistently seeing low drawing. I did go back to giving them a 1-to-1 feed and just gave them some 1-gallon buckets because they're extremely honey bound. They really don't need 2 gallons. The 1 gallon should be enough to get them through this series of grafts, and I can just top them off every week. These 2 had a tiny bit of mite damage. I did medicate them, but honestly it wasn't very much. I went ahead and just medicated everybody. I queen checked everything. I mean, I went through both boxes this past week and reorganized all the resources that I could. I gave a lot of them some empty space for the queens to lay with a little bit of comb I could scrounge up. Still just pretty crappy and in general. So I mean, I would want at least 50% take this week. I mean this week, you know, during the fall, and that's what I was getting. I am definitely going to make a 4-frame queenless snook. Probably going to go out and do that today. I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to, and maybe I could get the cloak boards to work. But you know what? I mean, I shut down the cloak boards last year. As soon as summer came, I shut them down because I couldn't get any grafts, just like I had the problem this year. I just have been really trying to make these things work. What did work for me last fall was I was doing 4-frame queenless starters, and you know, and I may just have to go back to doing that. So I'll make 1 queenless starter and I'll just compare it against these. It's possible, I don't know, are these just too big and they can't keep the hive cool? I don't know. But they've got pollen, they got food, there's no disease, they've got good queens. I mean, these suckers get micromanaged. There's literally a water source right here next to me. I mean, I cut a hole in the woods here to keep them in the shade. I've tried pollen patties, which I absolutely hate pollen patties. That's how desperate I've been. It's just been really, really frustrating. I've added supers to them to try and pull the heat off. I've made some that are a little weaker because maybe they were overpopulated. I've made some so big that they've got massive beards hanging out the front because I thought maybe I could extra populate them. There's just nothing that I can do to get our grafts up consistently over 50%, and almost every week now it's still below 50. And I know last year I was getting 50+%. Sometimes I was getting as high as 80% using those little queenless nukes. So I am going to go back and try those. I'm going to continue with the cloak boards. I'm not giving up on them yet. I just don't understand why they don't work. I just can't figure it out. It's just a puzzle. It's driving me nuts, and I don't know. I've gotten a lot of tips from you guys. I've tried all these different suggestions. I've reached out to other beekeepers online that I know that do a lot of grafts. And God, I've done every tip I can come across, and nothing's really working. So I just don't know what to do. But yeah, I'll try out the queenless starter here this week, and maybe we'll get better results. I don't know. It's just got to chip away at this and try to solve this problem because it is a serious problem. I went out and made a queenless nuke, made it in a different bee yard, and brought it back home. That way most of these bees should stick here that we're seeing. Used to be I would do it with 4 frames of brood, but I found this one beautiful frame. It was just half of the frame was just solid honey, and the other half of the frame was just beautiful, fresh yellow pollen. And I was like, man, hard to pass that up. Those are some good resources to start this little nuke off with. And then I've just got 3 frames of brood. I used all mixed stages. I've got eggs, larvae, cab brood. I know I would get better takes on my first round of grafts if I only used cab brood, but I do like when I have eggs and larvae in there, because I find it, number one, it tends to hold the bees more, especially when I bring them from, you know, somewhere else. They don't get disoriented. They don't fly out and drift off into a queen right colony or anything. It'll hold them down, but also because it's going to generate fresh nurse bees for me for 3 weeks straight, right? Especially from those eggs. If you just use cab brood, you know, it may hatch out in 2 weeks, it may hatch out in a day. It just depends on the stage of where that cab brood is at. So I just find that, I personally find that the hives just seem healthier when I make them with some open brood as well. I just have to know going into it that that first round of grafts that I'm about to put in there won't be quite as productive, because it's going to be competing against the open brood here. They're going to raise some of their own cells, but they're fully queenless. There's no queen. I found all the queens when I was building them. So I'm going to put them here and leave them here. And you can see I'm kind of putting them a little bit in the shade, so a little bit of risk for beetles, but I chose to put them partially in the shade because I don't want them getting too hot in that plastic box, because I do think temperature is having an impact on my grafts. But another reason I chose to put them right there, because just right over here is where I have some of the cloaks. I've got some in here, some in here. So they're all going to receive roughly about the same amount of sunlight and shade, what have you. So I wanted them to be as similar to temperature as possible. And I'm just really using that queenless nuke over there as a test to see what's going on with these cloaks. So I pulled the cells out this morning. You know, I got the 37, whatever it is. What's today? Today's Friday. So I've already put the slides in. So these things are actually going to be queenless, you know, most of today. They're going to be queenless all day tomorrow, and I graft on Sunday. So they're going to be queenless for, should be plenty long enough to give me a good take. I've been doing that recently, usually just because my cells are capped on Friday. I pull them. I figured, heck, let me just put the slide in while I'm down here. Otherwise, I tend to forget to come back down here. It's been working fine. Honestly, I haven't really seen a difference one way or another putting the slide in, you know, a day early. It doesn't seem to impact it. But I keep thinking, I've been racking my head all day about why these things are just not producing cells. And I've got a new hypothesis, if you will. And I'm going to test it against that queenless nuke. So here's my thought process. So obviously, technically, this is a queen right colony, right? We got a queen down here. This is essentially just a queen excluder. I just got this metal slide that goes in there. So it's going to stop the queen's pheromone from getting up into the top box. All the bees up here are going to be in a queenless state. And then, you know, the day after you put your grafts in, the grafts have started, you take the slide out, and the pheromones reunite. It becomes a queen right colony again. And that triggers a supersedure response. So you get a lot of cells started in the beginning with the emergency response. You pull that out, you get supersedure, which gives you higher quality queen cells. And so you get the best of both worlds in just one hive. And this is why I love doing it in spring. So far as you can see, in summer and fall, it's been basically an abject failure, regardless of every method that I can think to try. So here's what I'm thinking. And I don't know if this is true. It's just my thoughts for whatever it's worth. There is a queen down here, right? And so they're queen right. So of course they're not going to want to make cells unless they want to do their own supersedure, or they're swarming, or something happens to the queen. And what I was just thinking, you know, not only does the queen, you know, give pheromones as she's walking around and interacting with the bees, and of course the larvae are giving off pheromones, but a lot of the ways the queen's pheromones are spread, and that's the queen mandibular pheromone in particular, or the workers will go to the queen and, you know, they'll feed her, they'll exchange their pheromone through their mouth parts. And then the workers will go and spread the pheromone from the queen to other workers as they're spreading food, or again, just to spread pheromones. That's how the queen's pheromones gets around. I think, I could be wrong, but I think there's actually some debate whether the queen's body dragging on the comb leaves a pheromone. But for sure, the exchange of the mandibular pheromone from mouth to mouth, from queen to worker, and worker to worker as well, make the bees think they're in a queen right state. So you can see here, this cloak board has 2 openings here, and there's about 20,000. I got a little opening here, and of course I got my old crappy boxes, so there's cracks. So there's 20,000 openings give or take. Now the queen is not getting up there, not most of the time, but these workers can very much go down here, interact with that queen, take in her mandibular pheromone, and can go back up here for whatever reason. Maybe they just fly in the wrong door, maybe they're going up to care for the larva, the grafts, who knows. And they're interacting with these bees that are technically in a queenless state and probably sharing some of that mandibular pheromone to the other workers. And obviously that's not enough to completely shut down cell production, because I am getting cells, and we get 80–90% with this method during the spring. So it's not like they're in a queen right state up here. That's definitely not happening. But I do wonder if there's just a minute trace of mandibular pheromone getting up in this top box, just enough, because of all the other issues that are going on. The high temperature, the fact that we're in basically in fall at this point, so we're not in a season where the bees naturally want to reproduce. I'm trying to force them to reproduce. So maybe they just are like, they can just tell enough they have a queen that they don't really want to make those cells. Or if when they do make the cells, they make them in very, very, very small quantities. And maybe, I don't know. And yeah, that's just kind of my thought on it. So I'll be able to test that with this queenless nuke that's over here, because they 100% don't have a queen. They're going to think they're going to die if they don't make a queen. So they're going to be very prime to produce cells for me, which technically, theoretically, should be what's happening in this top box when that slides in there. But it's not happening. So if that queenless nuke starts making high quantities of cells, maybe not this first round, but maybe the second round, because of the larvae I put in there and the eggs, it will really lead me to believe that there is some traces of queen pheromone getting in this top box, and that's what's impacting my grafts. We'll find out as time goes on. All right, well, I was going to work this yard here. This was the yard that we thought was going to have Tupelo this year and did not. It was 12 pallets last year. We doubled it to 24 pallets this year, and this I've mentioned in the past videos, but we had started to come to work this yard. We had given them buckets. We gave them some of those deep foundations because they were the really strong unsplit hive and a halves. So pretty typical to the several other 100 hive and a half yards we have like this. And this yard is just extremely good, usually. And when we came out here, they just started robbing like insane. And this was, I don't know, it's been a little bit over a month that we were here. It was so bad, we just stopped rebuilding, we stopped everything and just left. This pallet here, and I'm amazed. I just lifted these up because you can see they'll show robbing a little bit. I'm not joking. This pallet, these hives were so completely saturated with robbers, like an inch thick. You could not see the boxes. It was just like a mass of bees. I dumped like a couple gallons of water on them, my drinking water right before we left. And that was it. You know, we tried to plug the entrances, which it looks like they've cleaned up. And now there's only one here that's dead. These other three, they don't look great and they're light. I cannot believe they survived. I wish I had taken footage of it, because I wrote in my notes, I was like, this pallet's gone. Somehow it survived, and I've never seen robbing like that. Just insane. You can see a lot of dead bees on the ground here where these also got robbed. Because this pallet was getting robbed. They jumped over here. I'm too scared to open them, honestly. And this is the side half of the yard that was getting robbed really, really bad last time. But it seems like the other side of the yard is now getting robbed way worse. So our intention, because we have not dug in these hives for I don't know when. I know we dug in them prior to Tupelo and went through them and medicated them and all this stuff. Queen checked everything. I haven't really been through them at all since then. And that was, I don't know, when was that, like May? Late April, May or something. So it's been a long time. I've been worried about this yard, but you know, they made like kind of an early wildflower. There was like 20-something% Tupelo, so they made a little bit. And then we got a nice wildflower crop. I think we got 6 barrels of honey or something off of these hives. So they did incredibly well. And then when I pulled into the yard just now, look at this. This half of the yard wasn't robbing at all last time. They are robbing bad now. Now I can tell because I flagged this colony. This was probably a queenless hive. I'm assuming it was strong because I did put a deep foundation super on it. I wouldn't have done that if it was, about to die. These also were probably some rebuilds or something that I did last time I was here. Because I know I started here and I was just getting down here like to rebuild, and when the robbing just got triggered and we just had to leave. So they're clearly still robbing. I still don't know what's going on in this yard. I've just tilted a few on the pallet just to look underneath. The weights have been mixed. I mean, there have been some that are very heavy, and maybe they're the ones killing the other hives and robbing all their resources. Most of them are kind of an average weight. Some of them are extremely light. But they seem to be alive, but I'm just too scared to open them. You know, I can deal with a little bit of robbing, but if it's like yard wide robbing like it was last time, it was just horrible. I don't want to trigger that again. It's just not worth whatever benefit I'm going to gain by going through these colonies. Not going to be worth if I end up killing half the yard. And I have lost, you know, 50 hives before due to robbing before. I'm very freaking paranoid about it. I've just seen near whole bee yards get wiped out. Doesn't happen often, but it's happened enough that I got PTSD from it, and I don't want to take the risk. So I think the best thing to do, I hope it doesn't trigger more robbing, but they definitely need some food. So I think the best thing to do is just to give them the 1-to-1 feed. I honestly, after kind of feeling how light they are, I almost wish I had some 2-to-1 syrup, which I can make it. I just don't have it with me. I almost feel like they need that. But right now I got 1-to-1, so we'll hit them 2 gallons with that. I'm not going to really open anybody. I might just tilt a few forward if I don't see any bees coming out, just to see if they're dead. And that way at least I can bring the comb back and I don't lose the comb. But I don't want to super, I don't want to medicate, I don't want to do queen check. I wanted to rebuild these dead outs here. I think there's nine dead outs in this yard I wanted to rebuild. And there were at least 5 hives that I thought for sure were going to be dead as a doornail. And you can see I already tilted forward a couple dead hives on the other side. I'm pretty sure that one's not going to make it. I'll try to clog the entrance or whatever, but you know, probably too little too late. I don't really know what else I can do here. All I can think to do is give them this syrup and come back in maybe a week, 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe it's smarter to work them when there's syrup in the buckets, but I just don't know. Then you're going to have syrup dripping everywhere. I mean, look at them. They're just crazy. I just flipped this thing up. I guess I'll flip this back. There's nothing there. Oh, man. They're just, I don't know. I mean, it's like, I've just never seen it this bad before. It didn't have any problems last year. Now, the only thing I can think is that I did drop a 12 pallet yard, you know, half a mile, maybe closer. I can't remember now. As the bee flies, some are off there, this guy's neighbor, because these were doing so good. And his neighbor wanted hives, and I was like, cool, you know, we need another spot. Was it because I dropped bees there and it's over competitive? But I just did that yard. That's that power line yard I worked a few weeks ago. There was no robbing there at all. Those bees are also a little bit on the light side. I'm going to swing by and feed those today as well. I don't know if I'll dig in them too much. But I don't know. Those hives were so weak. It's hard for me to imagine there were like 46 hives over there that could come out here and take these hives that are strong enough, that built up over that went to California and built up over 2 honey flows. It just doesn't seem right. Like those hives over there didn't have the population to do so much destruction. So I wonder, is there another beekeeper in the area? It's possible. Could be another commercial beekeeper. It definitely is not a hobbyist or anything. Could be a sideliner. Could be a commercial beekeeper. There was another beekeeper in this spot prior to me. And, you know, I didn't do it intentionally, but he was kind of scamming the landowners over. He was like charging them to put like a few hives out here. And then he gave them some like old nasty black molasses honey. I don't know what it was. Honestly, it tasted like molasses, like cane syrup or something. And it was horrible. And, you know, this landowner came to one of my beekeeping classes that we had done a long time ago. And he was just asking me like, what do you do? I was like, well, I pay 2 gallons of, you know, local honey every year. And you know, he's like, wait, you don't charge to put bees? And I was like, why would I charge? Like, I need you, man. Like, not the other. I mean, I know a lot of landowners are grateful to have bees on the property, but I need them more than they need me. You know, they'll be fine without hives. So he booted that other beekeeper off because he was, I don't even know what he was paying, $500 a year or something. I can't remember. It was something outrageous. And this guy's not a farmer, you know, there's no pollination here. He's got a little garden in his backyard, but these are just a guy, you know, with a little bit of property. So anyways, I do wonder if that guy has moved some bees into the area. I don't think he was that big. I personally think he was like a sideliner, maybe with a few hundred colonies. I don't know, but it's definitely, whatever's going on, I can't quite figure it out, what's triggering so much robbing. And again, it may be my own doing by just stuffing too many, doubling this yard and then moving in 50 more hives down the road is, could be the issue too. So this one is, I'm really worried about this yard because this, you know, there's a quarter of a semi here for almonds, and I am kind of budgeting for this, all of this yard to be rebuilt and going to California. And right now, I just don't know. I'm just too scared to open them. But all I'm going to do these, I am going to just stop and feed these. I will go down and feed that power line yard that's just down the road. Maybe if I see some robbing there, that'll tell me something. Maybe not. And I'll just come back here probably in the next week to try to get through them. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. I sure hope we don't lose this whole yard. Well, I had just looked at the entrances and checked underneath the bucket, see if I saw populations. Like, if I saw some bees out there, I called it good. If I took the bucket off, saw a lot of bees in the feeder hole, I called it good. You know, it's alive. It has bees. So, but there were some that were clearly not alive, as you can see. So we did lose some. I think 6 total is what I lost. I know this one over here was getting robbed to death last time we were here, so it's very likely it was already dead. There's one of these that's completely infested with wax moth, and none of the others are, so also possible it was dead last time as well. And I see a lot of them have these flags. The flags were put underneath the lid, which was, we were doing that kind of early in the very beginning when we were rebuilding or came across a queenless colony. Recently, we've started adding like thumbtacks to the lid with the flag in it, because I've had a hard time seeing these flags from just walking through the bee yard, and they do occasionally blow out, or you know, they come off when you're taking the lid off. So we stopped that. So I know that was an old split or an old queenless hive. So, and then I was trying to look around and to see if I saw any, like, there's definitely some wax cappings here on the ground on this one. But most of the other ones, I didn't see a substantial amount of wax cappings anywhere. Some wax moth debris, some beetle debris. Comb looks okay. So here's what I'm thinking is that these hives, and we did notice last time we were here last month when we were just going through them, you know, very quickly before the robbing got out of control, we noticed there was a lot of swarming and there were a lot of queenless hives. So there were queen cells everywhere. We've been noticing that with the 1.5 yards that weren't split. Anyways, we've been having that problem. There's another yard we have that's, you know, half swarmed to death. In fact, look, there's definitely a swarm cell right there, it looks like. So so it's quite likely, here's what I'm thinking, is that they just swarmed and they went queenless and they were dead or dying, what have you, or getting weakened, and then the bees did start robbing. There definitely are a little bit on the light side. They definitely need feed. This is also only the second bucket of the season. You know, there are already yards that I'm giving a third bucket to, so we've been a little bit behind with this location. So maybe the robbing wasn't really due to them starving. Maybe it wasn't due to another beekeeper. Maybe it's not due to me putting that second yard that's so close. Maybe these hives were already failing or dead and they've been robbing. Because, you know, another thing I've been noticing, they didn't rob out all the splits. Like, there's a split there. I've noticed that a lot of the syrup is out here. The bees are not interested at all. When they get robbing bad and I'm filling up the buckets and I've got that hole there, they're flying in that hole constantly. They're coming after every drop of syrup. They're all over the trucks. Normally they're buzzing, going like insane. Which they're flying a bit, but they seem to really only be attracted to those dead colonies. So it's almost like those hives were dead. They were just taking what they had and they're just still kind of latched onto them. So I'm going to go ahead and get these out of here and put them on the truck, clean up the bottom board of the pallet there, and I'm hoping if I can pull the dead outs away, maybe that will limit some of the robbing. I know that's not 100% the case because I'm about to go feed this side of the yard, and that side of the yard is definitely robbing to death a split that I know for a fact that I made it, you know, last time I was here. So it's not a perfect answer, but I'm just not seeing like robbing like the yard is dying or anything, and nobody's starving to death. I don't know. Best thing to do, get these out, keep everybody fed. I'll check the other side and see how many dead outs are over there. I did go ahead and take out this colony on the other side of the yard that was getting robbed really bad. I took the risk of popping it open. It was totally queenless, totally broodless. It was a split I made, you know, about a month ago, so clearly it didn't take. They're robbing pretty bad. I'm always a little scared when you have a colony that's getting robbed like this, and you remove it, because those robbers are going to go here, and then usually they're just going to land on the next closest colony. So this one, however, seems to be very, very strong, so it could probably defend itself, is my guess. I was on the fence. Sometimes I'll just leave these that are getting robbed, you know, just because I don't want to risk the queen right colony, and once they're done robbing, I'll pick it up on my next visit. But I'm scared of is I've picked up all the dead colonies from that side over there, took them away, cleaned the bottom boards and everything. So I'm worried about those that are attracted to the dead hives would come over here to this. There seems to be only one dead hive so far on this side of the yard, and so I don't want every robber to come to this spot and then potentially jump on this one or this one. I've got some splits here that are alive, but they're very weak, so I don't want to bring a bunch of bees over here. So I'm going to take the risk of just pulling it up, and hopefully they'll be okay. This is what a lot of my landowners do. If they have swimming pools, this landowner here just installed a swimming pool. So they'll put out these little blue plastic kiddie pools. They'll put some bricks, cinder blocks, whatever. Some guys will throw sticks in there, and they just keep a little bit of water in there. It keeps the bees coming over here to drain, keeps them out of the pool, which they're still going to get in the pool. In the pool, I tell them always, like, this is not hyper effective, but it does help a little bit. All the bees that are flying around over here, they would be in that pool otherwise, probably. This guy put out about half a dozen of these around the bee yard, so he's really trying to keep them out. And I hope it works out for him, but this works great, and honestly, I never really see any bees drown in there. It's pretty effective. Finished with the yard. I think I flipped up just that one here that was getting robbed to death. The others, as far as I can tell from the entrance or underneath the bucket, there are bees in there. That's about all I can say. So it's possible there's some are queenless or some about to die. It's too risky to open them. So overall, I lost 8 today. I've lost 17 total in this yard. Just there were some that have died, you know, the last few times we came out, and they didn't get rebuilt completely. So we've got 79 hives here. So I've got basically got 17 dead outs. I believe I need to rebuild, but it does seem like they've kind of chilled out. Like you see, they don't really seem that overall that active. Once I got those dead colonies out and onto the truck, and I don't know if you can see, but all that up there, that very high top box, that stack there is just the dead out comb. There's no honey in that stuff. I mean, it's just dry, empty comb. A lot of it actually does have wax moth in it. And the bees are just like lashed onto it. I even moved the truck to this side of the yard. They just came with it. They're staying over there. So they're just really wanting to get that comb for some reason. I'm not really sure why. They're not even that interested in the syrup. So I hopefully, now that I've gone through the yard, I do hope that that's just the case, that they were just robbing the dead out colonies that may have been dead for a while. Really, I have to kind of blame myself for the loss here. I mean, it's just my fault. You know, the hive, this yard was extremely good. It was one of our best yards. And because it was good, I focused on some of the other weaker yards, and I kept delaying it. And then last time we came around, it just robbed out of control. And I never came back around to get to it. And you know, by the time I came back, there were probably just more dead outs, which was triggering more robbing. And of course, you know, even though the robbing has pretty much died down a lot, I just find it still too risky. So I do think the right thing to do here is just come back, in the next week or two. I mean, they definitely need another bucket. There's no doubt about it. And just try to rebuild the yard if possible. And I was not able to look in these top deep boxes of foundation to see if they were drawing anything, but what I could tell when I took the buckets off, looking through the feeder hole, I didn't see anything. And again, the yard was really just a total mix of weights. I did go around and just rock random hives. There were some that were extremely heavy, some were a healthy average weight, and some I thought were dead. They were so light. And if I was, you know, if they weren't robbing so bad, I would sort of break down the weak ones down to 2 stories, if necessary, single stories, whatever. But it's just, I think me digging in them will just do more harm than any good I could do. It's just going to be really imperative that I come back in the next week or two. I'm also going to run over to the power line yard real quick, check on those, top their buckets off too, just in case they are somewhat responsible for the robbing, although I'm starting to be skeptical of that. I'll keep both yards on the same feed cycle, maybe keep those bees sort of contained to their own bee yard more or less, just to be on the safe side. And that yard needs their second bucket too. They've also only had one, so may as well just go now. Well, I've got the syrup on the truck. So yeah, pretty crappy day. I kind of suspected it was not going to be good. It could have been worse. I mean, I didn't flip up half the yard or anything. I think this yard in general, usually is so good this time of year that I think I could probably rebuild. And if they continue to rob, maybe I don't rebuild. Maybe I just let whatever hives can survive in this area, just let them ride it out. And if things continue to get really bad, I can scoop up half the yard. You can see I left it in 2 sections. So I can come over here, take this side of the yard out, move it to another location. That would also drop the robbing. So I've got some options. I did leave all the lids this time, so I'll make sure I have all the lids if I do want to rebuild. And I can always pop these triples off like I did in the yard last week to rebuild them as singles if necessary. And that's really it. I'll be back hopefully sometime in the next week or 2. I'm over here at the power line yard, just down the road from the last yard. It was getting robbed, and this one definitely got robbed out. You can see there's eggs in there. Had some larvae, some caproot. And looked like at least 3 frames of root in there. It was ruined. Got completely destroyed. Shoot, that sucks. It was the first hive in the yard here too. I didn't notice anywhere else that had any robbing, but I did walk through the yard. I don't know, that's not good. I mean, obviously if there's fresh eggs in there, there was a queen, so this one, it wasn't like they swarmed and were queenless like I was thinking in the last location, so they just got freaking robbed. And I opened these on this pallet over here, and they're hair on the light side. To be fair, they're not starving to death. Hey, maybe there's just not enough food in this area. I don't know. I'm gonna rebuild this one, hopefully before the robbers come back. And they're not robbing like crazy. You can see it's not like high levels of robbing, but it was dead. So I don't know. I'm gonna pull from this one over here and then try to jump start this one back. Hopefully it's the only one that got robbed out like this. Oh no, look at that. That poor little bee. She's got 2 mites on her. Obviously the one there on her thorax, but there's another under her pair of wings there. Shoot, you know what? Oh crap. Look how spotty the pattern is too. There was a lot of bee bread built up here. Pattern's pretty spotty, and I know it's always hard to pick up on the camera, but there's not a lot of eggs and larvae. Like sometimes I have patterns like that, but all the cells will be full of eggs and larvae. There's really not. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. That was the only bee I saw, but yeah, it's just not the best looking brood in the world. And I have a couple dead outs over here I was going to rebuild. I've got some cells with me, and I'm trying to use the comb from the last yard that I was just at. Some of it's still salvageable. And I remember when I wrote in my notes last time when I was here that the yard was just kind of like, it wasn't bad, but it was kind of like, you know, it could be better. They were a bit light. There wasn't a lot of brood. I was kind of attributing it to bad queens because this set of hives came from that same yard I did last week, our Tupelo yard. Remember, I was also thinking that yard was bad queens. And I think some of it was. I actually just saw a green queen. She wasn't really laying the best. And there were green queens in the Tupelo yard. But, you know, as I did that yard last week, remember that I started detecting mites there towards the end of the yard. And then I thought, well, you know, that was probably a combination of old queens, mites, and honey binding. These are definitely not honey bound. They're at best their average weight. Most of them are still a bit on the light side, even after I gave them the 2-gallon bucket, which it's been about a month. You know, they definitely need another feeding. They're not going to die, but they definitely are going to need a bucket a day, and sure as heck they'll need a 6 bucket, maybe more. So far, none of them are touching the deep foundation I put up there. They're just too weak, and clearly there's mites going on here as well. So this yard's going to have to be fed, medicated. I'm sure I can rebuild these too. I mean, that's not that big of a loss, but I am going to go ahead and just run through the brood here. I just wanted to fill the buckets and see if they're robbing and go, but you know, shoot, you know, you get in here and you start seeing problems. You gotta address it, and you know, 2 mites on a newborn bee is pretty darn concerning in my book. This is a split I made last month. It was 1 honey, 4 brood, 4 frames of bees, and it's pretty much dead. That's a shame. Didn't have cells, didn't have queens. There's some bees in there. I did look. I don't see a virgin, and it has been actually a little bit less than 4 weeks, so it's not. I wouldn't expect to see eggs. I mean, sometimes they'll start laying a hair early, but the population's so low that even if they've got a virgin running around in there, there's no way they're going to survive. Until she starts laying, and then that's going to take 3 more weeks for that brood to hatch out. They'll be toast. So I'm going to just rebuild it. If there's a virgin, me adding those foreign bees, they might kill her, but I've got some cells, so I'll just drop a cell in here, start it from scratch. I think it's probably the lesser evil than just leaving this hive to die and losing the comb. Not all the brood is unhealthy. I haven't physically spotted any mites crawling around. I'm almost through the yard. And this one looks a little better. You can see it's got a lot of nice fresh pearly white larvae, eggs. There is still a lot of spottiness, and again, that could be just older queens. It could just be some mites that I'm just not detecting. I'm not doing alcohol washes. I'm trying to eyeball it, so I could definitely be overlooking something. And generally, they just need food. This one is doing pretty well on feed. It's one of the very few that's I hesitate to call wax production, but there's been just a little bit of wax on the top bars here. You can see they've swollen some of that comb out. Very minute. Still absolutely nothing in these deep foundation boxes. And this yard's so weak, and overall just light feed-wise, I don't think they're going to do anything with it. I'm going to leave them on. Doesn't appear to be harming them, and I'm going to just keep slamming them with some syrup. So maybe they'll do something. I don't know, but I've definitely need to go ahead and medicate this yard for mites just to be safe. They're going to need another bucket after this bucket, no doubt about it. And I'm going to have to put this yard on the list to receive some new queens if I'm able to make any more before the season's over, because I don't know. But I've got to eliminate mites, and food is a factor, same as that other yard that I did last week. This yard's just the opposite. Instead of being honey bound, they're light. Dang, I've been finding a few buckets like this since we've been buying these new ones. You hear that? Still slam full of syrup. Never poked the holes in it. There haven't been that many. We've been pretty good about it, but every now and then I find one. That's pretty sad that a yard like this, that I was desperately needs food, didn't get anything. And I know why. Last time I was out here, I remember there was a huge thunderstorm coming. It was like flashing lightning and stuff. I was getting rained on when I was putting the buckets on. I was in a rush, because normally I do double check them, but that's what happens when you get in a rush. This poor hive hasn't had food in 4 weeks. Actually, it hasn't had food at all this entire year. I'm not really sure what was going on with that one hive that was being robbed out. I didn't see any robbing, and I just finished running through all the hives. I had to rebuild some of the dead outs, fix them up. I had frames laying around. These are some of those old wire frames I've been pulling out as I go along each yard. You can see it's full of honey. And bees are not interested in it. I don't understand what they're doing sometimes. I thought they'd be murdering each other today, and when you pull up and you see a yard that got robbed out, that wasn't even a split, that was probably a healthy colony that has brood, you assume the worst, and then there's nothing. I don't know. Well, so much for my hopes that this yard was not going to rob at all. Look at it, they are on that honey now. Finish the power line yard up. This second half of the yard was better. Not impressive, just better. There are 7 queenless hives here. 2 were dead outs I rebuilt. Well, 3 actually, because of the one that got robbed out. And then the other 4 that I made were not quite queen right. I think there was one I left alone. Seemed like it might be okay. I couldn't find the virgin, but they seemed pretty passive. And the other 3 I just gave anywhere between 2 or 3 frames open brood. One of them I rebuilt completely, gave it a cell. Not really sure about those. That's why I don't like coming to the yard before they've had time to queen, the last round of splits that I made. Because I'm like, what do I do? I can't really tell if it's going to be good or not. But, hopefully the nurse bees on the open brood will not jump on a foreign queen too quick. Maybe they'll be okay. If not, I guess they've got a chance to make their own queen. But yard's back up to 48 hives. Again, about to be 47 hives because, this happened. Which you can see I I'm in my old habit of putting the medium on top. I accidentally did that, but I'm sure as heck not messing with it now. That was a dead out that was getting robbed earlier this afternoon, and I rebuilt it. And bees didn't seem to care. Nobody was bothering it. I built it pretty strong. I gave it some extra brood, extra bees to try and defend itself. And honestly, it was fine. You know, I started here and I worked all the way to the back, fed, and didn't have any problems. It was when I got on the mower and I just started mowing, and it just, you know, that's why the bees are looking a little frantic now. They just got stirred up, you know, threw some grass at them. It's hard not to. And then they just started getting a little crazy. They're robbing that honey frame that I laid out on the trailer finally. They're all over it. And at the same time, they jumped onto this one. So I'm going to plug the entrance a little bit before I leave. There's nothing else I can do. So I'm going to rebuild that one next time, more than likely. But, you know, what can you do? You know, generally when I leave a bee yard, I walk away with the overall feeling of the yard. I think the yard's good, it's average, it's bad, it's heavy, it's light, it's sick, it's not sick, whatever. I feel all of those things about this yard. It's so mixed, the quality. I mean, there's some that are pretty darn good. I mean, none of them are like blowing my hair back good. They're just, I'm like, okay, they're good, they're okay, they're stable. There are many of them that are like average, below average. Like I still kind of, I'm walking away roughly feeling like, you know, about this yard. Like, you know, it could be better, could be worse. They could all be dead. They're doing okay. There was no robbing going on until just here recently. So I just don't know. I think the best thing to do here is just to beat the mites down. I did not see any other mites as I got all the way through, but again, the brood just is not super impressed. It's not sick. It's just not great. There's tons of pollen coming in, so it's definitely not a protein deficiency. They're definitely light on feed overall, although there were some weird heavy ones. Most of them were pretty darn light. So the queens have space to lay, they have room to bring in that pollen. They just need some carbohydrates, which I gave to them. The nice thing is that yard that was just getting robbed out that I did earlier this morning is just down the road, which is partly why I suspect I'm having issues with robbing. The only nice thing about that is next time when I run over there in the next week or two to fix them, or at bare minimum give them another bucket, I can at least bare minimum come by here and give these girls another bucket because they just need it. Maybe there's just so many hives in this area that I'm just going to have to hit them with a little bit more food. I don't know. I'm definitely not feeling great about all these hives smashed together like that. Not ready to move them just yet, though. We'll have to see. I'll just keep the feed on them. Try to get a little weight on them. I don't know. Part of me wants to do 2 to 1 next time, but like this yard could definitely do 2 to 1 because it is pretty light, but I also need the populations to go up. I would like them to draw the foundation out, but that's I'm probably really holding my breath there for that one, but I do need the populations to grow, and if I plug them out with a thick syrup right now, especially with the fall pollen just really beginning to come in heavy, they're going to get stunted, and I don't want them stunted at this population level because they're just not that great. You know, they're not impressive or anything. So I'm leaning toward, we'll see. I'm leaning towards hitting them with a 1 to 1. I think what I may have to do is, and you know, because this is my first year really using pure 1 to 1s, you know, like this. I mean, normally I do hit them with a 2 to 1. I guess I'm just going to have to make an effort to get to these hives more often to feed them. You know, usually you hit them with 2 gallons of a 2 to 1. It's like dropping a cinder block on top of them. I mean, when you put the bucket on the hive when it's full of syrup, it's boom, you know, the whole hive shakes. There's 1 gallon and you can pick it up and flip it up with one hand. You're about. It's so much lighter, which means that's less weight that's going to not be transferred directly into those colonies. So they're just burning through feed faster. And this hive was kind of light even a month ago. So that's something I may just have to get a little better at, is if I'm going to stick with a 1 to 1 and I come across a yard that's light, maybe instead of feeding every 4 weeks, I can feed every 2 or 3 weeks. That's something for me you know, I just need to adjust my schedule to, which I have plenty of time now to do so. So just something to think about. Anyways, that's it probably for this week, guys. I'm sure this video is about 2 hours long, so I'm not going to film anymore, but it's almost the end of the week anyways. And hopefully next week we can see what those cells are going to do with that queenless starter. I'm really chomping at the bit to graft into those tomorrow, and see what the results are compared to those cloak boards. See if my little pheromone theory is correct or not. Who knows? It'll be interesting. We'll learn something one way or another. All right, guys, I'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching. See ya. Bye.